Dr. John Rusin, so good to see you, man. I'm so pumped that you're on the show today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, since it's just the first line, it's Rusin. Everyone messes that one up.
Okay. I've been saying it wrong for like a decade then.
Yeah, everyone has.
Rusin. All right.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'm not going to do is start over because I'm not a quitter. Dr. John Rusin, dude, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. So for those of us who maybe mispronounce your last name or are not aware of who you are, what you do, could you just give a little bit of background?
Yeah, I'm the owner and CEO of Pain Free Performance Specialist Certification. We've certified over 20,000 coaches, physical therapists, and physicians over the last 9 years. And it's the fastest growing and it's the biggest privately owned certification company in the fitness industry. And alongside that, I've been coaching for 19 years. I'm a physical therapist, strength and conditioning coach, personal trainer, and my focus now is in health performance and longevity. And I have a client list of a lot of diversity, from athletes all the way to people that are incoming their later years in life and everyone in between. But running personal training, running team training, the education, and then we have a couple other different tech offerings that are coming through as well.
That's amazing. So what came first, physical therapy or the training side?
Training side. So I started my career off as a strength and conditioning coach. 19 years ago, I trained my first athlete who was a high school football player. And then from there, I spent the next like 12 or 13 years, really 99% of what I did was in high performance athletics, professional sport, Olympic committees, traveling the world with different athletes. And that's what came first. And somewhere along the lines and somewhere along the way, I got a doctorate in physical therapy, spent way too much time in school, and then ended up right back in the gym where I started, which was really ironic, but I think that's where I was meant to be the entire time.
I like that you just like somewhere along the way, it just happened. You just got a doctorate, just manifested it.
That's how it worked, man.
Because it's that easy.
No, it wasn't easy, but at the time it seemed like just like a smart move. I had a scholarship offer to go to graduate school. It was right in my own hometown. I was already employed, so I was making some money. I was living at home with my parents, and I was like, you know what, screw this. Like, I'll go to graduate school and work. And I think that was an eye-opener to be like, oh shit, I don't want to do this the rest of my life, but I think I'll take some of this knowledge and definitely some of the education over a 3.5-year period of a doctorate level education and be able to pivot back into what I was really interested in, which was performance.
Okay, so you've married these two, and I've done a lot of your programs, and I love your stuff. All the stuff you put on Instagram is super high quality, very educational. I love like the slides you do of your workouts. Everything's awesome. What are some of the pitfalls that you saw in training? And then what are some of the pitfalls you saw in physical therapy? And how are you taking your unique approach and blending the best of both worlds and eliminating kind of those negatives?
Well, I learned early on that the name of the game for any successful coach is how healthy can you keep your athletes? How can you make them feel good on a daily basis during the season so they can go out and perform? And how do you really focus in on keeping them healthier for the upcoming season and the off season? And it was like the big aha moment of like, hey, you probably don't need to make the fastest people in the world any faster. You don't need to have somebody with a 47 vertical jump hit 48 to be a better player. All you need to do is make sure that they are at their best. And I think somewhere along the line, the principles of pain-free performance started creating its own system. And I started working with wives and mothers of some of my pro athletes. And I was like, hey, I'm utilizing these same systems at a very high level with these general fitness consumers. Hey, maybe that's a thing. Maybe that lady who has 4 kids at home and is stressed out because she's not sleeping very well, but still wants to be fit, still wants to be lean, still wants to be functional and active. Maybe she needs to be training at the same elite levels as her husband that makes $30 million on the field on Sundays. And there was absolutely truth to that. And I think from a vocational perspective, or at least from a moral perspective, why would I give anything less to somebody that is just living their life at different goals than somebody that is living their life on the field? And that was the aha moment that I think that I knew I was going to be transitioning out of sport into general health, fitness, and longevity. And not really knowing the future, what it was going to hold, but I knew that the principle base of the performance model that I was running had far more legs than just the athletes.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said there, because I think that's a realization that everyone comes to over, a career of lifting in their lives. Start off, you're 20, filled with testosterone and childhood angst. And so all of your sessions are like balls to the wall. Like, how can I slam like a pre-workout inside of my white monster and just overwhelm my body with rage and
Yeah.
caffeine. And then eventually everyone kind of transitions to a little bit more of a sustainable model. But you said that like the number one most important goal we should be pursuing is health, longevity, and like pain-free, like lifting and kind of experiences in life. So like with that in mind, if you look at like the average just big box gym, what's something that everyone is doing in there that they need to stop doing immediately? And what should they replace it with?
I'm a great consumer because I will go to 4 to 5 different commercial gyms every single week because of the consulting work that I do and the relationships that Pain Free Performance has with all these big brands. I want to go in and I want to be able to be in the environment that everyone else is in from a business perspective, but also from an end user perspective. Something stood out to me. I was in Atlanta, Georgia 2 days ago, and I was in the most beautiful Lifetime you've ever seen. And this thing had 6 floors. It had different decks for pools and cold plunges. I was like, holy shit, this is the Mecca. And then all of a sudden, I was like, where the hell are all the personal trainers? I had one of my staff with me training like 6 a.m. in the morning. No personal trainers to be found. 8 a.m. rolls around, and we're about done with our session. And I'm looking at 3 personal trainers bring their clients through a session. And I was sitting there foam rolling, like recovering in our 3-phase cool down. And all of a sudden, the trainer goes to the client who's probably like 70 or 80 pounds overweight, probably about a 55-year-old man. He looks like he's struggling just to get down on the floor, just to have the conversation. And the trainer goes, hey, man, what do you want to hit today? And he goes, I think some shoulders and some biceps. And I was like, you're paying $170 an hour right now to hit shoulders and biceps like you're an 18-year-old kid on spring break. And this coach is willing to do it for him. And us being us, like we just like kept our ear open and we're like, I wonder what's going on. He only trains 1 time per week with this trainer. So what the hell are we doing with these bro bodybuilding splits? What are we doing with frequencies that don't match up with people's goals? What are we doing with all these theoreticals that are out there and not actually looking at the application of the real world scenario that we all need to live in? I think that's the number one problem that I see in the fitness industry today. Everyone's all these theoreticals, all these optimals, and nobody's doing anything that's actually helping them in the real world, in the real time with their real lives. And I think that breaking through some of that bullshit and being able to fall back on the principles that have been true, tried, and effective for the last 40 or 50 years in the fitness industry, it's like those have all been forgotten about today. But what was old is going to be new again. And I think that is going to be the future of the way that we problem solve, actually get results, get client buy-in, and have people making market improvements in their health, because that's most times what people are after. After you cut away the superficial bullshit goals, why are you here? I want to live better. I want to live longer. And I want to make sure I can do the things that I used to do for the rest of my life. And then when you talk about goals like that, you're like, oh shit, why am I doing shoulders and biceps today on my $170 training session per week? It doesn't make any sense.
And they probably did biceps first too.
I don't know. I left after that. I didn't see it unravel.
Okay. So your whole thing is pain-free performance, right? Like improving longevity, improving like lifestyle, improving like the ability to live longer. What does that look like, especially for someone who is not a high-level athlete?
I think it's balanced and well-rounded. Those 2 key words describe everything. As human beings that need to be healthy, they need to be happy, they need to be high-performing for their life, not just in the gym. We need to be able to have 6 core characteristics that are trained every single week. We need to have adaptations of moving fast for power. We need to load heavy with strength. We need to build muscle and work on body composition with hypertrophy. We need heart health with cardio and conditioning, VO2 max, and also base building. We need athleticism, being able to move in different directions. And of course, we need mobility, moving through full ranges of motion. That is a well-rounded plan. And what I see auditing thousands and thousands of programs is that people are maybe only getting 1, if not 2 of these core characteristics when they're leaving all the low-hanging fruit still on the trees. wondering why they feel like shit, wondering why their results suck, and wondering if fitness is even for them anymore. That's when they give up because they think this is the only way. But when you look at a pain-free performance program, we want it to be balanced. We want it to be well-rounded. We want it to be a health-first fitness solution. And we want it to create long-term improvements in the way that you live outside of the gym while also making you invigorated inside.
First of all, let me just say you are really good at talking about this. You're very well spoken and you have a great voice.
I've been talking about this same concept for probably 14 years publicly. So I think that over the course of time, our systems get refined. I will always evolve. I will always look at the best data, the best anecdote to try to improve my system. But the principles of the system remain the same. And I think that talking about things over and over again, it still needs to get through. I think we're lucky today because, you know, in 2013, I had my first article on tnation.com. I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. Like, that was my first entry into like the main stage of the fitness industry. But I was still talking about the same things back then. It's like how not to break down, how to train hard, and how to make your life better with fitness. But I think over the years, I think we've regressed in terms of being able to actually adhere to just some general principles of what makes training fun and effective. I think we've regressed across the whole industry.
Well, I feel like it's a lot of just these like social media short clips of jacked dudes who are on gear showing some dumbass exercise, like miss me with the whatever this is called with a single dumbbell curl. Like, hard pass. Why even bother? But it just gets propagated through these short little reels where someone with bigger biceps than you is doing it. And so suddenly we're back on a bicep only day.
I don't think we're never going to win the algorithm battle, right? Like good coaches that are working with real humans that have been around for a decade plus, we're not going to win the algorithm. You will not see a real coach out there with more than 500,000 followers on Instagram. You're not going to see people with 5 million or 5 million on YouTube. You're going to see carefully curated content for clicks and low-level purchase actions on these platforms. And that's okay. But I think that the general fitness consumer, we need to have better bullshit detectors out there. And this is a hot topic today because I think some of the OG coaches are just fucking sick and tired of this stuff where we're like, you know, it's not about us competing in the space. It's about people not ending up, to me, 2 years after breaking down and burning out on some generic AI bullshit that was propagated to them on mass stream social media. But I think that we need to do a better job of just like riding out the storm, being able to serve who we can serve right now, and not trying to be somebody who we're not. If you have a fake ass, don't sell a glute program. That's just ethics. If you're on fucking juice, then don't sell a hypertrophy program to somebody who's not. You know, these are common sense basics that I think that people have just forgotten about, or they want to treat their health and treat their training and treat the way that they move inside of the gym as a hobby versus a specific prescription that is simply the best thing that they can possibly do for bulletproofing their health and longevity. It's two different things.
First of all, I paid a lot of money for this BBL, so like, let's chill. Secondly, I think my first T-Nation article came out July 31st, 2013 also. And then third, like you mentioned the 6 pillars, which pillar do you feel like is neglected the most in most training programs that you see across the board, having reviewed?
Yeah, it's a pendulum swing. If you would have asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said probably mobility. If I would have asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have said most likely strength. And today people are hyper fixated on kind of this strength hypertrophy hybrid. This is all you need to do for everything. 6 to 8 rep RMs for every exercise. And this will be a cure for mobility. It will be a cure for athleticism. It will be an optimization strategy for fat loss. It's just not true. So when I think today, I think that we are very focused in on having the ability to build strength and muscle. But building strength and building muscle, it's not just specific exercises. And it's absolutely not strict set and rep and total volume ranges. I think that we need to have a broader scope and a broader outlook of what strength is, what functional muscle mass or functional hypertrophy actually looks like, and be able to actually be able to move and live and protect your joint health and protect your systemic health in the process, to be able to withstand the test of time, which will ultimately make you your healthiest and happiest self. So I would say that the thing today that people are really gravitating against is athleticism. It's moving with power. Dare I say, old school, circa 2000 functional training. I think that's what people are missing today.
Interesting. And we'll see what the next 5 years has for us as well. So when you're designing a program for someone, obviously you're taking into account all the different variables, their stress, their lifestyle, previous injuries, amount of time to have to train. What are you doing for someone if they only have like 1 day per week and they don't want to hit shoulders and biceps?
1 day per week, I'm having a very honest conversation with them that you cannot move the needle in 1 time per week. You can't hit volumes. You can't hit the amount of exposures. You can't develop new skills. You can't lose fat. You can't get strong. You can't build muscle. You can't gain more athleticism. You can't really do anything except for have your foot halfway through the doorway to making the next jump up, which is absolutely pivotal, which is a 2 day per week training structure. At 2 days per week, we enter into the result. We enter into the opportunity to start changing our body and changing our minds and changing our movement. And at that point in time, I think we're having a different conversation because we are adhering back down to the base minimal effective dosages that we can actually get better from. I think that anyone who's training 1 time per week, it's so popular on Instagram to be like, well, it's better than nothing. It's like, oh, fuck that. It's better than nothing. Give me a break. We want to be training in a way that actually helps people. So we need to be at a bare minimum 2 times per week. 2 to 3 times per week is going to be key for people. Full body splits, being able to have structured warm-ups, hybridized training plans, and then being able to have something that they're doing on the other 5-6 days a week that they're not actually training. I think that opens them up to be able to actually adhere to something and actually see the results from some of the work that they're putting in.
Minimum 2 days per week. Then what's your preferred training split? If you could design someone's from scratch, they got unlimited time, what would you
Unlimited
do?
time, more is not better, always. So I'm a big fan of, if you're going to go 2 to 3 days per week, you can get great results at 3 days per week, full body. And if you mix and match a little cardio and conditioning and mobility in there on the off days, I think that you can improve your results anywhere from probably 20 to 30% across the board if you jump into a 4 day per week, more strength and conditioning schedule. Many times, 4 days per week will necessitate us being able to split from a recoveries perspective. So it turns into the old school upper lower split, which is personally what I use because I think it's awesome. I think that there is diminishing returns when you go over 4 days per week of actually heavy lifting or heavy strength and conditioning. But there are times and places where people that do want to train up to 7 days per week, you can get them into something like a movement pattern split or more of a regional split that is at 5 days per week, as long as we're getting all those core characteristics and movement patterns in. But I don't see a whole lot of people gravitating towards wanting to train hard and focus 5 days per week. Average person wants 3 to 4 days per week of hard training, another 1 to 3 days per week of, hey, I'm going to get some mobility work in, do my warm up, walk with a weight vest on and get my cardio done. And it just becomes a more well-rounded plan that they can actually see success from. And I think that one of the biggest limiting factors is this theoretical. They look at like a bodybuilder program and they're like, oh, train 2 times a day, 7 days per week. And it's like, you see some of these people and then you look at their training blocks and they're like, wow, your log says that you just benched 95 pounds for 5 reps. Like, your training plan doesn't matter at this point. Like, we need to do the base things well.
I got better results when I was training 5-6 days per week kind of during the pandemic in my garage. And my son was born and all of a sudden my time all evaporated. And I started training like 2 days per week, maybe 3 if I could get it. And my results got way better. So I noticed that. But if you're doing a 3 day per week program, you're recommending full body 3 times.
It's a non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable. The reason it is that you have to be able to hit every movement pattern with a frequency of at least 2 times per week. When you look at that, you have the squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, carry patterns. Carry is essentially locomotion, moving your body through space. And in order to get to that frequency for all the patterns, which is a complete human movement system, you really need to be doing full body. There's no other way to get around it. If you split it off into push-pull legs, I hear that one all the time, you're not going to adhere to that. The second reason that you want to be able to do full body is that you need to be able to optimize your recovery with full body at 3 days per week. So you just don't go in and blast one thing and then wait another 7 to 10 days to blast it again. Your recovery is going to be shoddy at that point, and it's going to be.
And you're going to get sore every
Yeah.
workout. That's not my favorite. All right. So your book is coming out. It's called Pain Free Performance, Move Better, Train Smarter, and Build an Unbreakable Body. Now, if someone picks this book up, which you got pre-sale going on right now, releases October 21st, 2025. It's going to be amazing. Everything that you've put out that I've consumed has all been like the highest quality in the industry. I personally attest to that. If someone's going to go into this book and they're like, man, I only have like 2 days per week to train, are they going to be able to find the answers and be able to put together a program based off of
They
that
don't
as
have to
well?
put together everything. I've put it all together for them. Section 4 of the book is
You got
a
it all built out.
robust programming chapter where I have all of my principles that you can read through and you can gain exposure to, but then also you can skip the steps and go right into the programming. So we have full body, we have the upper lower splits, we have the ultimate pain-free performance program that is a 5-day hybrid, and we have the ability to then take all of these ancillary things that makes these pain-free programs come alive. It's not just about your training program, it's about your preparation. I use something called the 6-phase dynamic warm-up sequence. You'll be able to identify your chronic pain points, identify your mobility limitations, and pick and choose exact preparatory sequences to then couple with your training program. You'll also be able to do off-day prehab and rehab work because we have something called linchpin blueprints. So if your chronic knee pain is holding you back, if your lower back is always in a recurred injury cycle, if your shoulders just suck with their mobility and it's really limiting your performance, you can go in and you can start specializing in these pain-free performance protocols with the linchpin blueprints. And then on top of all of this, I've created a long-term strategy where there's 3 different distinct training blocks within any of the frequencies or any of the goal sets. So we go through a reclaim phase, which is, hey, let's rebuild your movement from the ground up. We'll train hard, you'll be getting your ass kicked, but you're going to be addressing weak links. And then we go into a rebuild phase, which is more functional hypertrophy, which people love. And then you go into your forever phase, which is going to be called regain. The gains are all about performance. At that point, you get to the level where we are training everything, we are maintaining everything, and we're moving all those physical capacities forward all simultaneously.
So you talk a lot about mobility work, but I've also heard you talk shit about foam rolling a lot. So like, what's the line between mobility work and then just wasting time on a foam roller for 45 minutes trying to get warmed up for your
Yeah,
squat?
I mean, it's all about the investment that we use within the pain-free performance system. We invest 1 to 2 minutes of soft tissue work per day. And that's how much I think of foam rolling and its use. It is a non-negotiable tool. I believe that everyone should be doing soft tissue work. But again, we need concentrated work, we need focused work, we need programmed work with the desired goal at hand. So when you look at investing 1 to 2 minutes with a targeted approach versus 45 minutes rolling every nook and cranny of your body, those are 2 different things. But the foam roller has its time and place in a preparatory sequence for your warm-up. And it also has a more unlimited, hey, do whatever the heck you want, because we have the data to prove that it's a really good recovery tool if you want to go in and have those longer, more extended sessions. But that doesn't happen before training. That happens after training or on an off day. But I think that with some of these more fluffy physical therapy style modalities out there, we're thinking about soft tissue work, stretching, corrective exercise, muscle activation drills. These are all highly effective, but the way in which you put them together, create a blended program with them all, but then have minimal effective dosages and not just going all in on one single thing, acting like it's the be-all, end-all of pain-free training. I think that's where the magic happens, and it creates a synergy effect that is more time efficient, it's more effective, and it couples to actually change your movement system.
Do you feel like physical therapy is holding people back in a lot of ways because it's just too conservative?
The average physical therapy exposure out there is dog shit. I think there's many different reasons for that. One is the insurance payments are getting less and less. That physical therapists can spend less and less time with their clients. They're hand-tied. I'm not blaming physical therapists out there for poor results, which are true. But I do think that there are people out there that are trying to get more into the training space with the physical therapy background, because the education of how to rehab injuries really does help when it comes to keeping people healthy in prehabbing pain, injuries, and burnout. So I think that this is like a tiny niche that's out there today. But the average person that goes to physical therapy has a bad taste in their mouth if they are above and beyond just a bottom feeder in physical society. If your goal is to just walk to the mailbox and back, your general geriatric physical therapy will do really well for you. But if you're active, if you're training, if you have goals to go and play recreational softball or basketball, if you have kids that you have to chase around on the playground, likely is that you are going to be underserved in cookie cutter physical therapy. And then that's where people tend to have these chronic conditions that linger for a long time. And that's many times when they come into something like the pain-free performance training system.
Gotcha. Oh, so let's talk a little bit about CrossFit, because I think this is a fun topic. But CrossFit, do you feel like it was a net positive or net negative in terms of like general fitness
Huge
population?
net positive.
And then to follow that
Huge
up,
net positive.
okay,
CrossFit is responsible for mainstreaming strength training. Hard stop on that. And anyone who denies that just doesn't know what they're talking about. We had strength training before the inception and the popularization of CrossFit, but never at the numbers that we saw at the peak. And I think that it got a barbell in people's hands. It got people squatting and deadlifting and hinging and doing some higher heart rate work and actually training hard. So I think that it exposed people to load. It exposed people to strength training, progressive strength training. It exposed people to grinding and working hard at like zone 5 heart rates. And I think it opened up a lot of people to opportunities to take that as their entry point into, oh shit, I should be strength training and I should be working hard in the gym. And then they find their path with a little bit more niched off offerings that probably feel better on the body, don't leave them hurt or broken down, aren't so competitive that they're actually putting their competition at a 5 a.m. class in front of like their occupation, their kids, and their job. But it was a big positive. And, I had the ability to see the CrossFit Games at the highest levels here in Madison for a number of years, right where I live. And the culture in the community and just the general health forward, way that this community operated was really good to see. I'm not somebody who does CrossFit. My wife did CrossFit for 5 years. She's fucking jacked, and she holds a lot of that muscle mass and capacity because of it. But I think she's a really good example of, hey, had exposure to these great things. I knew I needed to make some changes because this wasn't a long-term strategy, and she found her way.
I also think that like for females, CrossFit did so much good, because now you go to any like big box gym and you see equal amounts of females and males in the squat rack, like lifting heavy. And I think that that's like 100% due to the CrossFit phenomenon. So
yeah, I think we're trying to force feed a little bit in that the fitness industry today in America, the biggest populating trend is going to be female strength training. And you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's super empowering. And we want our women to strength train. Like, hell yeah, that is going to be probably the best thing that they can possibly do for their health and longevity. But I do think that we need to do a better job of like, hey, what is strength training? How are we actually training to bulletproof against pain, injuries, burnout? And how are we doing this intelligently? Because strength training, when you say it, is a very general term. An even more general term is resistance training. You look at some of the government recommendations and they look at resistance training as picking up your laundry basket and walking it up a flight of stairs and then folding it when it gets to your bed. And that's just not the case. But I think in the gym population, we are seeing a little bit of a shift towards strength training in general. But I don't necessarily think that this is the best trend, because specifically in the female segment, I see that strength can be empowering. It can be an extraordinarily empowering tool, but it's getting to the point where it's like, hey, you have to pick or choose. If you're a woman over 35, you need to strength train, never do cardio again. And it's like, I can get behind that. I hate cardio. And then it's like, no. Like, we need all this stuff. So I think that it's just this pendulum swinging back and forth. You looked at when I started my career 20 years ago, it was all about the cardio for the ladies. Today, it's still all about the cardio, let's be honest. But we have an emerging population that is wanting to strength train more and more. But we need to be balancing things out. Like I had a famous quote a couple of years back that said, hey, women probably need to be training more like men, AKA smart strength training. But men, you really need to probably be training more like women. Not like a fucking meathead,
glutes
not
every
like
day.
an egotistical idiot, but somebody who's doing cardio, does yoga, has a little bit of mobility practice, hypertrophy, strength, moving like an athlete, and just doesn't look like shit. Is lean, is strong, is being able to be functional in your life.
Yeah, and also trains glutes.
Yeah, no doubt,
But let's be
no
honest.
doubt. I just had this article in GQ magazine last quarter, and I got more shit for this article than any other article that I ever had. But I just said, like, it was the
Yes.
reemergence of glute training for men. And I've been a huge advocate for glute training for everybody for almost my entire career. And all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I see people at the gyms that I'm going to standing in line to go on the hip thrust machine. I'm like, yo, that's cool. And it wasn't that way even a couple years ago. So I think there is an emergence of like, hey, the glutes are more than just like, hey, just get a big fat ass. It's more of like, hey, here's how we get strong. Here's how we bulletproof against knee and lower back pain. Here's how we rev the metabolic engine with the biggest, thickest muscle in the body. And here's how we actually look like we have that power build that I think many people are going after. They're looking at the athletic power build as the aesthetic of choice. People don't want to look like Ronnie Coleman. They want to look like Cristiano Ronaldo. And if you look at Ronaldo, broad shoulders, lean stomach, big hamstrings and glutes. And I think everybody would sign up for that, all the guys out there.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. I'm surprised you got so much hate on
it. It was from a weird population. So like if you go into GQ, I think that's not my normal people. That's not my normal readership. So it comes with the territory, I guess.
I've also seen a lot of guys on the adductor machine too. Like I feel like that, like 10 years ago, that's a girl's machine. Now I'm like, I see dudes on there.
Yeah, I think it comes
looking
from
over their shoulder,
like
filming themselves.
We work with a big gym chain, like 6,000 gyms worldwide, and they have 8 base machines that they'll put into every single gym. And I think just because over the last decade they've shifted into, hey, the abductor, abductor machine is mandatory. I think it is come down to like, hey, fuck it, this machine's there. We only have 8 gyms or 8 machines in our gym. I'm going to go in and utilize it. Very rarely do I think somebody's like, hey, I'm going to use the adductor machine to get huge abductors. I think it's more of like, hey, it's there and it's there everywhere, so I might as well use it.
I started using it when I started training jiu-jitsu, and I like how that made my hips and knees feel.
Yeah.
Also, if I can crush the life out of somebody with my thighs, like
priming on that machine, both directions, like abduction, knees out from each other, adduction, knees into each other. That's a really underserved area. And also it three-dimensionalizes your training just a little bit. I would argue that we can do it outside of a machine, which would probably have better functional transference, but there's some nasty pumps that can be gained on the AB adductor machine.
For sure. Do you like it sitting down with you, like kind of in the 90-90 position, or would you prefer standing up for more of like an athletic?
So
position?
if we're going to be doing it in the machine, I think there's certain
cable.
biomechanics of the machines that you should just do the machine and not try to like pretend like the booty chicks, like try to like go in opposite direction, like get
drop your hips up. Yeah.
But we do a lot of standing work with AB adduction in single leg or in kickstand positions or in quarter squat positions that can load the quadriceps from an isometric and then get the contraction happening from the lateral side glute. So I think those are really high yield things. And it doesn't take a whole lot of load to absolutely make you feel like you are a baby. Like I just did those last week and I was crying after 2 minutes.
Yeah. Like you throw like 30 pounds on there. You're like, that's a little pretty spicy. You throw like a little basic band on. Yeah. I'm with you there. Talk to me a little bit about Olympic lifts. Like obviously CrossFit brought those to like really mainstream. I don't see as many people doing them in big box gyms anymore, but do you think that the average person should be even doing Olympic lifts, or are there better options that are more like pain-free performance?
Pain-free performance, we do not program Olympic lifting in my professional opinion. Again, just my opinion. It is the highest level motor task that we could possibly do. It has huge amounts of mobility requisites, huge amounts of stability requisites, huge amounts of skill requisites, and then we need to be blending an athletic component with your feet fixed to the ground and your hands fixed to a bar. It is really difficult to be able to have the amount of time and exposure needed to develop these specific niche skills so we can actually start training strength or power characteristics. I'm a huge fan of training power, but very rarely, if ever, do I put Olympic lifts the traditional Olympic lifts into my programs. We'll do different derivatives using different tools. I think the kettlebell is an awesome tool. Dumbbells, extraordinary tool. Landmine, even better than both of those. And we're able to display the same triple extension, triple flexion properties of the Olympic lifts. We're able to go in and actually get some unilateral based focus, which actually is the most global and functional movement of all. And we're able to still train in a more accessible way. In my career, I don't think there's anything more frustrating that I've seen than people having to be on a barbell or on a PVC pipe to try to learn a skill that they don't give a shit about. Most people don't care how they train. They want the result and they want to be able to feel and function well. And when you take away the dogma of a specific tool, whether that be Olympic lifting, whether that be powerlifting, whether that be CrossFit, you can start to have a little bit more freedom in the process. And I think that just feels good for people. But that's something that I grew up with, Olympic lifting. So I'm very proficient, can coach it and teach it. But I just don't believe it's the highest bang for your buck that we can get in terms of effectiveness, but also accessibility for athletes all the way to general fitness consumers. There's a reason that you don't see the Olympic lifts in professional sport anymore. There's a reason that you rarely see Olympic lifting platforms in commercial gyms anymore. The industry is just moving away from it.
I also think about it like golf, like people will spend years and years and years working on a single golf swing, right? And then they go to the gym and then you have to learn how to row and how to hinge and how to lunge and how to squat and like all these different moves. And they think they can just go pick up a barbell and do that well. Like it, again, like you said, it's just the juice doesn't seem like it's worth the squeeze for the time investment to do it well when there's so many other options. Like I'll take a high pull any day over a clean just because you don't need as much skill level to land that. And you get 90% of the benefits?
Sure. Yeah. It's when we break down some of these Olympic lifts of the component of their parts or just change the tool, it becomes fun. You get the same feeling, you get the same neurological power impact, and it doesn't derail your mental or emotional focus during a workout. Like dumping a bar, like it never feels good. Like we want to be no misreps.
No.
Team no misreps.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you there. Talk about barbell back squat.
Big fan. I would say that 40-50% of my clients are able to work up to being able to have the executional quality to get the most out of strength. The way that we would program a barbell back squat is very specific though. I'm a big believer that the barbell back squat or any barbell traditional lift for that matter, it's really best served in the power or traditional power and strength schemes because the last thing that we want to break first is our ability to maintain core and spinal neutrality, and then also have pillar shoulders, hips, and the core working together in order to stay in advantageous positions for health and performance. So we tend to load those heavy in the 1 to maybe up to 8 rep range, usually within the 3 to 6, and people do really well. But I'm not tied to them. I would say that the other 50 or 60% of my clientele, they will do derivatives of the squat, the barbell back squat, they never really touch, and they're totally fine with that as well. I think that one exercise is not a be-all, end-all of everything, and I definitely don't believe that the barbell back squat is the number one. They call it the king of all lower body lifts, and I see it as the least accessible of all king of barbell lifts. I would far rather deadlift somebody with a barbell. I would far rather bench press somebody with a barbell than probably barbell back squat them. In the Pain-Free Performance Specialist certification, we kind of rank the 6 foundational movement patterns in terms of their ability to be coached and accessed in terms of mobility, stability, and skill. And the barbell back squat is likely the highest level of all of those things that the least amount of people get to in our system.
That's fair. Kind of like last question is kind of a little bit of controversy here, but I've been seeing a lot of stuff recently. It's kind of like the McGill camp of spinal stability, your dead bugs, your Pallof presses, that sort of thing, versus kind of the David Weck coil spinal rotation, spine should be able to move, like philosophies. Can you just kind of maybe explain your thoughts around those? Is it a blend? Is one or the other? Where do you fall?
I love Stuart McGill, a friend and colleague of mine, and I could say the same for David Weck. And I don't think either of them are right or wrong, but they're both absolutists in their stance. Part of pain-free performance is being the middle ground. The middle ground in almost everything. Very little absolutes except for doing everything. That's the only thing we're absolutes on. But we are believers that an entry point, especially for pain-free performance, as somebody is dealing with an acute or a chronic injury, is to stabilize as close to neutral as possible. That's where we'll fall into the McGill camp. But when you look at where the source is, Dr. McGill is working with people that have fucked up backs. No kidding. That's why he wants to restabilize people. And then you look at being able to progress them to be able to have a more robust mobile system, especially with the spinal engine. Then you go into flexion, extension, side bending, rotation, hybridizes of all these movements. And that's more of a performance realm. And that's a long-term strategy for longevity when you've already become healthy. Where people go wrong is they mismatch this stuff. They go, hey, my back's fucked up. I should do more Jefferson curls, and I should definitely spinal engine with heavy side bending. And then they end up more hot and acute than ever before. So I think appropriate of where you are makes both of these strategies, which we'll utilize, they'll be valid depending on where you are and who you are. So we use methods that would fall in line with both of those camps. And I think that that's a weird stance to be, because people want to be like, hey, what do you think? What do you believe? And they want you to talk shit about one versus the other. But I think at the right times and places, both can be extraordinarily awesome. And I, with my own training and the training on my Unbreakable app, will utilize both of those strategies in terms of being able to train the core and the spine specifically through one, isometric, and then two, being able to explore more safe and effective ranges of motion.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've been kind of confused on this too, because I've been seeing a lot like back and forth here, and I want to have David Weck on the podcast to unpack that, because I've always been in the spinal stability camp. And I wonder if it was to my detriment at any point, because I was only working spinal stability versus, like once I was healthy, working more of the spinal engine, some of those coil moves. So
I think there's
curious.
pros and cons. If you were to pick one over the other, it's like I do believe in stability as the base, because the assumption that people have a movement system that is already robust and healthy to be able to display end ranges of motion in more acutely advantageous positions, I think that that's a huge assumption. If you're a personal trainer or a strength coach out there, your people are coming from ground nothing. And to build them up, stability before mobility. It's a
and they don't even know how to create like irradiated tension through their core. Yeah. Okay. That's totally fair. Cool. We got 1 minute left. What's the final word? What do you want to let us know? What do
final word is that I'm excited to have this book out, because I think one thing through, you mentioned all the years that you've been following and reading and subscribing, is that there was never one place with all information. And that was the reason that I went in and I took on the biggest project of my life, which is being able to go in and write this book with Victory Bell Publishing and my co-author, Glenn Cordoza, who's done awesome stuff previously in his career, with Kelly Starrett and Brett Contreras and a number of other people, is that I wanted somebody to have something physical in their hands to be able to be like, here is the entire system. Here's John's whole career in one spot. And that was a high amount of work to get that done, but I think we far exceeded it, and we've taken long enough, because we're at 2 years and 7 months since the project started, and we'll be at 2 years and 11 months when it actually gets out. And that's way too long to write a book, but I think that everyone who opens this thing up, everyone who goes in and pre-orders and look at some of the pre-order bonuses, and then absolutely whoever jumps into these training programs, they're going to know the quality is there. And that's that's the number one thing. I wanted to uphold quality in a different communication medium than I've ever done before. All the articles in the world, all the podcasts in the world, the magazines, the TV shows, all that stuff. The book is going to bring all things together.
Yeah. Rather than just trying to piecemeal it yourself. This book's 504 pages, you guys. Like, this thing's going to be a monster. If you ever bought the Supple Leopard book and you just need a reference book, but now in the pain-free performance for your training, this is going to be the new Bible. So, Dr. Rusin,
stop and end it. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I got you. This is a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. Oh, by the way, real quick, so if people are trying to pre-order and get the pre-order bonuses, on Amazon, or do you have a website?
So you can go direct to Amazon. Pain-Free Performance is the name, and you're able to go in and pre-order that. And then over on becomeunbreakable.com/pre-order, you can go in and grab all the bonuses based on how many books you order.
Got it. Cool. All right. I'll put both links in the show notes here. Man, this has been a lot of
Thanks,
fun.
man.
Thanks a lot for your time, Dr. J. All right. Have a great day.